Yes, yes, I know the title says Daybell.
You
We're
indicated,
watching this until
let me rephrase that.
Daybell comes on.
When you showed up at 34 Fairview that morning, did you recognize that address or recognize the home as being that of Caitlin Albert's?
No.
You have since learned that that was Caitlin Albert's home.
As I know that now.
Right. And you gave your original statement to Trooper Proctor the next day.
Yes.
And from that day to this day, or let's take yesterday, from that day to yesterday, you learned that 34 Fairview was the Canton Albert family home, correct?
You're asking if I know from...
Between those 2 dates.
Yes.
Between the time you spoke with
Yes.
Proctor in this report till yesterday when you testified, you now know.
We're watching this until Daybell comes
Albert
on.
home.
Yes.
And you also indicated that between that report that you gave to Trooper Proctor, that statement that you gave to Trooper Proctor, and yesterday's testimony, your statement has evolved. You've already admitted that, correct?
I don't think I agreed with you on that.
It's changed. It's different.
I've always testified to
Morning, Carlette.
I feel as though my testimony has been consistent.
I appreciate how you might feel. I'm just interested in the actual facts. You didn't tell Trooper Proctor anything about this officer questioning my client. Correct?
Objection.
So I'm going to see counsel at sidebar because I think this morphed into a different.
So, defense counsel is, I think I'm going to turn back on this a little bit. Yeah. I'm going to turn back on this a little bit because I think we missed a little bit of fireworks in the.
All right. So, Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. Jackson's going to be allowed to ask you questions outside the presence of the jury, and you're still under oath, and you have to answer them truthfully. Okay?
Okay.
So I scrolled back. This is earlier. And we're waiting for Daybell to come on.
McLaughlin, when just briefly as a predicate, when you stepped out, I just want to make sure we're very clear. Did you have a conversation with anybody from the Commonwealth between the time you walked out of court and just now?
Just about if I needed a drink of water or to use the restroom.
Okay, but nothing about the substance of your testimony.
No.
Ms. McLaughlin, I asked you before we broke if you know who Caitlin Albert is.
Yes.
You said that you went to high school with somebody by that name, correct?
Yes.
You in fact know that person as a friend, correct?
I know her.
She's more than an acquaintance.
I would say she's an acquaintance. She's not a close friend.
Is she in a group of friends of yours?
We have mutual friends.
How long have you known her?
Probably since high school.
When you say, and I don't want to ask your age, I wouldn't do that. How many years? How long of a span of years have you known her?
Since high school, so maybe 10.
And you know her family generally?
I don't.
You don't know anything about her family?
I don't know her family.
Had you ever been to her house?
Not that I recall ever being there.
Not that you recall, or you haven't? Those two different things.
I don't recall ever being there.
Okay, so you might have been there, you just don't recall.
I don't recall ever being there.
Okay. If I were to ask you if you have ever been to her house, yes or no, you cannot answer that because you don't know. You cannot recall, correct?
I would say, I would lean towards no. I have no recollection of ever being at her house.
Are you friends with her on social media?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm just going to leave all four of these up here. I know what they look like. Can you do me a favor and take a look at the first document? What does that document appear to be?
The Commonwealth's case really hinges on these friendships between the first responders and thank you, Solo Sock, my dear. I really appreciate that. It really hinges on these personal relationships between the first responders. Hey, Stacy, good morning. And the investigators and everything. And they really good morning, Sparkles. They really need to prove their theory of a frame job. So he's grilling this woman, Katie McLaughlin, one of the first responders, about her relationship. And by the way, we are waiting for Daybell to start before we. I was under the impression that they were going on a viewing all day in this trial. And they are back. They are here. So let's go over to Daybell. We'll catch up on Karen Reed later.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I believe we're ready to start with additional evidence. So, Mr. Bailiff, if you would please have the jurors brought in.
Oh, Harlot got it. Welcome, Harlot. Yay. Pryor just learned that Harlot got a membership, and you know what he said?
Okay, that's okay. Okay, okay, right? Okay, right? Okay, right? Right? Okay, okay, okay.
Okay. And you know what Rocket Man said? You know what Rocket Man said? She said,
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for that clarification.
All right, Reed.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that clarification. Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
y'all are awesome.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Please be seated. All right. Good morning, everyone. We're back on the record on case CR 22-21-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. We're continuing with the state's case in chief. Officer Stubbs is on the stand and was previously sworn. I'll note that the jurors are all presently accounted for and properly seated. The court has received the juror affirmations from each of the jurors that are here present today, indicating they've continued to follow the court's admonition as it relates to not following or looking into or investigating the case. So thank you again for returning and for following the court's instruction. I'll also just briefly address the schedule for today. We are going to go past lunch, but not until we typically break in the afternoon, and we're intending to stop sometime around 2 or 2:30 perhaps, just for reasons the court stated to counsel in a sidebar before we started. So with that, I will inquire briefly of the witness because we had the break here from the exclusionary order. Officer Stubbs, did you review any case or testimony or anything about the case since you were on the stand this afternoon? Okay, thanks for affirming that. I'll remind you, of course, you're still under oath for your testimony. And Mr. Wood, if you'd like to continue with direct, you may do so.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
I feel much better today.
Just to recap, Detective, when we left yesterday for clarity of the record and for the jury, I believe we had spoken about your visit with Lori Vallow on November 26th,
Yes, we have.
that you were not able to locate JJ that day.
No, we were not able to.
and that you weren't able to verify his whereabouts later that day.
That is correct.
Uh, Did you, in the next day, help in searching Lori Vallow's apartment?
Yes, November 27th, 2019, with a search warrant, yes.
Okay, thank you, pursuant to a search warrant. And I believe you testified yesterday that you did not locate JJ in any 3 of those apartments.
We did not.
Detective, did you have body cam on? Did you do a body cam? Let me rephrase that. Did you do a body cam walkthrough of any of those apartments?
Yes, I did on both 174 and 175.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 144,
Very well.
and a courtesy copy has been provided to court and counsel.
And Judge, my numbering may be off because I had 144 as the first contact with Lori Vallow. Am I mistaken, counsel?
That was
59.
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, 59.
No country.
Detective, do you
Walk
recognize State's
prior.
Exhibit 144?
I do.
What is it?
This would have been a USB drive of my documentation of apartment 175.
And did you specifically review it on that drive?
Yes, I have.
And did you initial that drive?
I did.
Is it a true and accurate representation of the body cam you recorded that day?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for admission of State's Exhibit 144 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
All right, Exhibit 144 is entered into evidence.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I publish?
You may publish.
This is the search warrant on apartment number 17. I inquire, is the audio coming through the speakers?
It is.
Okay.
Well, I think it is. I'm not sure if it's through your mic on your computer or through the speakers.
Put the mic.
I think it was through the speakers, though.
Write it on.
175. Coming into the front door, this is the front room. Detective, I'm going to pause it real quick. Is this the same apartment that you spoke to Lori Vallow in?
Yes, it is.
And this body cam was taken on what date?
The following day, the 27th.
Of November 2019?
Yes.
Entered. This is the damage to the door upon a no-knock entry warrant. Door, front door. Back of the door. Room. Here's the door jamb. Front room and kitchen area. There was, upon arrival, keys that had been left on the counter, a envelope from Amazon. This was on the front porch to a Lori Vallow, 565 Pioneer Road, apartment 175, Rexburg, Idaho. Kitchen, pantry,
half bath. Garage leading to, or door leading up to the garage. This area. Couches, tables, guns located in this area. Sorry, Sean. I'm going that way, Rob. Staircase going up to the second level of the whole 175. To the left at the top of the landing, it's like master bedroom, bed, a bath and closet area. Upon entering, no clothing left in this closet, shower.
Detective, we just heard you say there was no clothing left in that closet, correct?
Yes.
Was that of note to you?
It made me think that the occupants, because of our day visit before, left in haste.
Like there was some electronic devices on these at one time. I can see dust imprints of what appears to be computers. Here is a printer. On this printer is a lease agreement. Looks like executed on October 1st, 2019. And it says a Lori Ravan, RVAN, as the leaser. Coming out of the master bedroom, a hall adjoining a laundry room to the right. Continuing down the hall to the left, a furnace, water heater, closet. Opposite that is a bathroom. Continuing down the hall, 2 bedrooms. One to the south, one to the north of the hallway. This is the one to the south. A single bed, a double bed, a closet containing a couple coats, 1 empty box, a
Hi,
fan,
Tracy.
some empty hangers, what appears to be a bedspread, and this box here that appears to have possibly winter clothes, female winter clothes inside. Continuing to the other bedroom,
I do feel much better. Thank you,
we
Sharon.
have, this is the one to the north. We have a bed, appears to be some bedding on the floor. We have 3 cases here, all containing guitars. It looks like a duffel bag full of toiletry items that would appear to be belong to a male subject due to the cologne and so forth inside. This closet is also fairly barren. Looks like there are 2 samurai swords inside the closet, empty laundry basket,
Samurai swords?
another basket containing some odds and ends of some sort. Nothing else in this room. That is the entire aspect of the home upon entry.
They scurried out of there.
And Detective, did you search or did you do a walkthrough of any other apartments that day with your body cam?
I did a walkthrough of the apartment 174, which is right next to 175, would have been Melanie Boudreau's apartment.
And can you remind the jury who Melanie Boudreau is and her relationship to Lori Vallow?
It would have been Lori's niece.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 144A. Yeah, a copy has been provided to court and counsel.
All right, thank you.
Detective, do you recognize State's Exhibit 144A?
Yes,
What is it?
this would have been my documentation of the apartment 174 when I did a walkthrough after entry had been made into it as well.
When you went into 174, was there anything that stood out to you?
Well, this particular apartment appeared to still be, someone was residing there. The clothes were in the closet. There was a car in the garage. So it appeared to me that someone was still residing there. Something that struck me as odd is as we were searching. So this was Melanie Boudreau's apartment. At one time, she was married to Brandon Boudreau. I noticed that on the counter, she had a, if you will, a 3-ring binder with those clear plastic organizers in there. And I thought it was odd because I knew they were divorced, that she had numerous of his credit cards and driver's license in there.
And is that all captured on the body cam that you took as you did a walkthrough?
Yes.
And State's Exhibit 144A, is that a true and accurate representation of the body cam you took on that walkthrough?
Yes.
Did you initial that drive and have you reviewed it?
I have reviewed and I initialed it after viewing.
Your Honor, I'd ask that State's Exhibit 144A be entered into evidence.
No objection.
All right, Exhibit 144A is admitted.
And may I publish?
You may.
Should be, I hope it's still empty. Okay. I don't think so. Okay, this is apartment number 174, which is just south of 175. This is the initial walkthrough of the apartment. This door was hit on a no-knock warrant. This is the door, and the door jamb was destroyed upon the entry. No one came to the door. The front room. kitchen area. Looks like there is a couple of electronics, possible some kind of purse here. Here is looks like several credit cards with name of Brandon Prodexio. Pronouncing that wrong. Also
Rodexio.
a driver's license out of Arizona for Brandon. Coming around more.
But she has brand
Detective,
license.
you recently testified about finding a large amount of credit cards for Brandon Boudreaux.
Yes,
I believe there you may have mispronounced his name. Is that?
I surely did.
But it was Brandon. I'm not saying that to make fun of you.
It is the same.
For purposes of identity, it was Brandon Boudreaux. Okay.
It's nice that he can.
And Your Honor, I'm done with this exhibit.
But Melanie had Brendan's credit cards.
And Detective, just for clarity from yesterday, you've testified that JJ Bell was not located that day, was he?
He was not.
To your knowledge, did the search for JJ Vallow ever extend into a search to include Tylee Ryan as well?
Yes,
And Detective, you testified before that you have some experience in cellular devices.
that is correct.
Did you participate or write warrants for any cellular or digital evidence in this case?
I did.
Did you prepare a list of the different warrants you prepared in anticipation of testifying at trial?
Yes,
Did you do that to aid the jury in understanding the different warrants you wrote and to be able to explain why you wrote them and what you obtained from them?
yes, I did.
And do you believe it would aid the jury in understanding your testimony about the nature of the evidence you collected?
I believe it would help them understand what we did and why.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 296.
Morning, Music City Mom.
And I don't know if the Court or Counsel has a copy of this yet.
I have a courtesy copy.
Okay, and I believe he does.
Thank you.
Music City Mom, is that because you live in a Music City? I'm not asking where you live. I'm just asking if you live in
I do.
Music City.
Detective, is this the list I was just speaking to you about?
It is.
Is it a true and accurate representation of the list you created?
Yes, I prepared this list.
Your Honor, for demonstrative purposes only, I'd ask that State's Exhibit 296 be entered into evidence.
No objection, Judge.
Okay, Exhibit 296 is admitted as a demonstrative exhibit.
And before I go there, Your Honor, I just, or Detective, I want to clarify with you really quick. Did you ever find evidence that Brandon Boudreaux lived in apartment 174 in Rexburg, Idaho?
No,
May I publish Exhibit 296?
Yes.
Detective, approximately how many search warrants did you obtain for electronic or digital evidence in this case?
20.
Are they listed on this list?
Yes, they are.
Can you tell us about the first item on that list?
Yes, so 2019-77 was the first warrant that I had wrote. This was for the known phone number that we had originally had contact with Lori Vallow. um, after our original contact. However, wouldn't take any calls after that. But so I wrote this warrant to Verizon Wireless to get information on her and anything that Verizon might have that would aid us in trying to locate her and her children.
All right. And did you obtain any useful information from that warrant?
Yes.
What was that?
So just if I may, just kind of give an overview of, if I may, from 77, can you lower it down past 53 just a little bit? So 77 through 61, just so if I may, this was all finding the children. So these were all done in attempt to locate where the kids were or Lori was. And so I just wanted to clarify that these are going to be all grouped, if you will, in that aspect.
Thank you. And since you brought that up, the numbers on the left, is there a method to the numbering of those warrants?
So at least where I'm from, Madison County,
Sure.
the way warrants are issued, the first number has to do with the year, then the dash, and then the second number is what warrant was in accession, whether it me, someone else that got a warrant. So it'd be at the first year, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on throughout the year.
All right. Okay. Thank you. And so going back to the top of the list, what useful information did you obtain from that warrant?
So as a result of that warrant, it led to the next warrant because we were able to get a return from Verizon saying, these are some of the names and email addresses that would have been associated with that first number. So then, as it shows here, we wrote 86 in 2019 because we were able to obtain these email addresses. As you can see, 3 of them were Gmail accounts, which in some ways is very useful to us in trying to identify and find somebody.
Okay. How does that help you find someone?
So, kind of in a nutshell, anytime someone uses social media or a Gmail account or has any kind of account that would associate them with the internet, and Google is very good at keeping track of people.
Listen up.
And so when you use a Gmail account or you're logged on to your Google account, they are very good at keeping record of what you do and when you do it and where you are.
Yep.
So Gmail's, and that goes for other mail accounts as well.
In regard to
But Google's
Google accounts,
particularly good at it.
is it true that Google runs several different apps that can be on a phone?
Yes.
And you testified Google keeps track of people, or I shouldn't say of people, but of the devices that their apps are loaded on.
Yeah, they keep track of the accounts that people set up, who they are, or who set them up. Vital information that might help us especially in this case, if there were other phone numbers associated with that Google account. Google will package those under, if you will, that Gmail account, addresses, credit cards, things like that. Google will, if you log in from a device to your account, whether it's a computer, cell phone, whatever, they'll make note of that and link that to your account.
And in terms of the Google location services that they keep track of. Are you aware if an individual can opt out of the geolocation tracking?
This is how.
So
they keep their
there
memory.
is an option through Google. If you so desire, you can turn off your location services, which would keep Google from keeping that information.
So under search warrant 2019-86, you have, can you read the names of the 4 accounts you searched?
Yeah, so in blue here, the result was Homer J. Maximus at gmail.com, associated with Alex Cox. Lowly Time Forever at gmail.com, Lori Vallow. Lori for Style at iCloud.com, also Lori Vallow. And Chad.Daybell at gmail.com, associated with Chad Daybell.
Hello, Tiggy.
To your knowledge, were you able to obtain Google geolocation data from any of those accounts?
Yes.
Which ones?
Homer J. Maximus would be the one that, if you will, gave us the most information.
What a weird name.
Let's go
Homer J.
to
Max.
the next warrant. What was that written for?
So again, we're still in the process of trying to locate children. JJ and Tylee. Sorry. So search warrant was done for a PO box we had located for Lori in Sugar City, which is an adjoining town to Rexburg. In that mail, we found a Verizon bill. Upon opening this Verizon bill, we found several phone numbers listed under the name of Lori, Alex, Charles Vallow, Tylee, that we didn't have before. So our thinking in this was to, again, write another warrant to Verizon for these numbers to try and get additional information so we could find these children.
Was anything useful obtained from that?
Yeah, it just solidified a lot of what we had already done, numbers that were associated, and
Hello, Doxy.
we're able to eliminate quite a few of those phones as that they had been surrendered, if you will, or turned to somebody else and no longer had anything to do with them. This count had kind of gone into default because of lack of payment.
Okay. Let's go down to 2020-09.
Okay.
You can describe for the jury what that warrant was for.
Okay, so again, you're going to see the Homer J. Maximus, but so when these apartments were abandoned, 175 particularly, no one ever returned to them after the 27th. So the landlords, if you will, or owners, went in to clean out all the stuff that was in there. And when they were in there, they had located in some of the stuff, 2 abandoned devices that they thought best to turn over to us. So this is a result of looking at those devices. The new one that you would see with Alex Cox is the raylamar@gmail.com.
And then again, Homer J. Maximus is that Homer
Right.
J. Maximus again?
Yes.
Tell us about warrant 2020-15.
Okay, so this was originally written, if you notice the second number over in this warrant, a typo, I put it in parentheses here, was put 47 when it said it should have been 74. So those two numbers were just crossed. Anyway, what this means with a tap and trace warrant, we still could not get answers on where the kids were, and couldn't get information from Lori.
And let me interrupt you really quick. I apologize. Do you recall approximately when you submitted this warrant, 2015?
Would have been fairly early in January, I believe,
Of 2020?
2020. Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and if you can explain what a pen register tap and trace
Sure.
is.
So what this does is we request this on these numbers because we believe we could associate these with the parties. The company, which would have been Verizon here, would send us live data, not necessarily conversations, but where the phones would be, if you will, hitting off of cell phone towers to give us a general location of where they might be at this time, live, if you will.
Okay. So it's is it fair to say it's used to try and track a person's current location? Or let me rephrase that, a device's current location.
Yes.
And you did that trying to find those phone numbers that are listed there. Do you know who those phone numbers belonged to?
So yeah, this is going to be a long and short of this, but
Asian.
because it's going to come into connection with 2020-20 as well, because if I may kind of explain that.
Sure, please do.
So the 15 was wrote to Verizon Wireless. Well, ultimately, two of those numbers, Verizon said they're not our numbers. You're going to have to also get a hold of T-Mobile. So two of those numbers in 2020, as you see, T-Mobile Wireless, were in the above warrant. However, we had to write a new warrant for T-Mobile. So they're both in conjunction, if you will. Okay, now that I've explained that, ask that question again.
So the numbers that are on, and I'm actually going to
Okay.
say between 2015 and 2021, who do those numbers belong to?
So we believe those numbers to be associated with Lori Vallow, Alex Cox, Tylee Ryan, Chad Daybell.
If you were looking for Tylee and JJ, why were you looking at Chad Daybell's location?
Well, I mean, Lori and Chad were married. We couldn't get a hold of either one of them. We couldn't get any straight answers as to where they were. We couldn't get any answers as to where the children were. So they were associated.
And I'm going to just kind of back up just really briefly. When you obtain a warrant, how do you obtain a warrant?
So we have to enter what is called a probable cause affidavit to the court on why we want it and what we believe we will find once that warrant is signed by a judge. So with that probable cause affidavit, a warrant for what we are looking for is presented to the court. The court reviews that. If they feel like our probable cause is just, a judge will sign the warrant, allowing us to move forward with serving the warrant on whoever it is we're serving it on.
So the warrants are signed by the judge.
That's correct.
On these pen pen register / tap and trace warrants. Were you able to locate Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow through those warrants?
Yes, we were able to locate the devices which we believe to be with them in Hawaii.
Warrant number 2020-25. Can you tell us what you found or what was searched and found on that?
Okay, so upon finding where they were, we had investigators, FBI, go to Hawaii, Kauai, if you will.
Morning, Tika.
And they were able to locate Chad and Lori. A warrant was obtained to gather evidence from their residence where they were staying there and their vehicle. This is the result of 10 electronic devices that were taken from their rental car that they were both in. And so that is what the 10 electronic devices is for, why we obtained warrants.
And did you search all these devices yourself, or did other agencies and other personnel help in searching some of these devices?
So yes, I'm glad you brought that up, because all these warrants, when you get back a return from Google, Verizon, you have to understand these are thousands of pages long, thousands of records, thousands of pages. And for just one person to go through all that, and especially in the short time frame we were trying to do this to find kids, is simply impossible. And so a lot of the returns that I got from this, I would give out to FBI, other investigators for review, so we could try and go through a large record in a short amount of time.
And we'll return back to some of the things that were found on that in just a bit in 2020-25. Can you tell us about 2020-30?
Yeah, would you mind just moving that down just a
Oh,
little
I-
bit? Thank you. So this again was another tap and trace warrant on a phone that we found. You have to understand, by this time, like I stated at the beginning, we still had no answers even after contacting Chad and Lori as to where the children were. We weren't getting any answers. No one was talking to us. So again, with this tap and trace warrant, we were still looking for children. And we were trying to establish if this device was anywhere around the children. So that's the reason for this one.
And the next warrant, 2020-31.
So this again came from, this would be Melanie Boudreau's apartment. Devices found there, and this would have been apartment 174. So this was a warrant for us to go ahead and search the actual devices that we had taken from that residence. I should note here that at this time, our current software that we use for forensics, I should say not me, but the FBI was taking care of these. The phones were not able to be broke into at this time, only the tablet. So that's still looking for children.
And you mentioned that, so if we can just talk about it really quick. Just because you have a device, does that mean you can automatically hook it up to your Cellbrite or another forensic software and read it?
Well,
Does that happen
that's
automatically?
kind of a two-part thing. yeah, we got to have a warrant.
Right.
And so forensic software is always slightly behind a phone, if you will. So whenever a phone comes out with new technology, forensic people who develop software are always taking the new device and trying to figure out, if you will, how it ticks, but it's not till it comes out. So as far as these phones, software hadn't been updated that we could break into the passcodes on these. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. So, and just, I guess to clarify, just because you physically have the phone and you can hook it up to your software, that doesn't mean you can always get into the device.
That's right.
Can you tell us about 2020-46?
So we were able to establish that these were two different numbers belonging to Melanie Boudreau. And, as far as at this time, we didn't feel like she was being cooperative either. We knew that.
Judge, I'm going to object at this time. I've been somewhat relaxed, but I need some foundation for him to be able to make these kinds of statements.
Mr. Wood, do you want to respond to that?
Approximately when did you obtain this warrant for the two numbers for Melanie Boudreau?
It would have been probably later spring. I can't give you an exact date without seeing the warrant itself.
And that's okay, but it was later spring of 2020.
Yes.
And at this time, had you found, or not you, but had law enforcement found Tylee and JJ?
No.
And were you trying to obtain information from Melanie Boudreau about the whereabouts of Tylee and JJ?
Yes.
Why would she have that type of information? Or let me rephrase that. Why would you think that she might have that type of information?
Well, in interviews, we felt like she was
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. There still hasn't been sufficient foundation. He's referring to other interviews. He's not identifying them, and I'm not even sure he participated in those interviews.
I'll sustain that, Mr. Wood.
Did you ever participate in an interview with Melanie Boudreau?
I only had interaction with her when she was being interviewed in obtaining her phone to do a forensic on it. I had to make contact with her during that interview for that purpose.
And Judge, could I have some date, time, place, foundation, please?
I'm waiting for an objection.
Objection.
It's true. Yeah, it's not an objection, Mr. Pryor. So now there's an objection based on foundation. Mr. Wood, if you'd like to respond.
Approximately when did you meet with Melanie Boudreau?
This would have been early on. I don't recall exactly the date. I remember it being in the interview room at the Rexburg Police Department.
Would it have been early 2020
Yes.
and before Tylee and JJ had been found?
Yes.
Right. And was that when you obtained these the phones that were subject to 2020-46?
No. Well, so these phones were obtained when we did the search on the 27th.
And I'm actually going to use this opportunity right now. There's multiple ways to obtain digital evidence, correct?
Correct.
Is one of those ways to collect the evidence off of the device itself?
Yes.
Right. Can you also obtain evidence from the phone carrier?
Yes.
And when I say that, I mean like Verizon, T-Mobile.
Yes.
And then can you obtain evidence from app companies of apps that are on a phone?
And Judge, at this point, the objection is going to be leading.
Overruled.
So as I earlier stated, with the Gmail accounts and so forth, yes, they keep a lot of information that would have been shared with a phone, a computer. They also keep records that wouldn't be on the device. It would be in their database with Google or whoever.
Thank you. So on warrant 2020-46, it appears, who is that warrant written to?
Can you clarify who?
Who was that warrant served on?
Melanie Boudreau.
And did it go to Verizon Wireless as well?
Yes.
And were you asking Verizon Wireless for information associated with those two phone numbers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Did you find anything on those that aided you in finding JJ and Tylee?
Other than associations with the other email accounts and phone numbers that we've already gone through.
Okay. Tell me about the next warrant, 2020-53. Approximately when did you write that?
So this would have been after Lori and Chad were served in Hawaii. In searching the vehicle, there was a notebook found. This notebook had pages of, if you will, user accounts and email accounts and so forth. There was a page in there from the car that all these email addresses were listed, and therefore we again obtained additional warrants for some of these in hopes to locate the children.
At the bottom of 2020-53, what do you have written there?
So a lot of this was still during, not making excuses, but pandemic time. So we never got a response from Google on this warrant after months. And so yeah, they never responded.
Oh, Google.
2020-61, the word schmule is written. What is that?
So that was, we found that a lot of these devices had this app in common. It's a music sharing app. However, in the music sharing app, there was the ability to communicate through, if you will, text type messages. So again, we were just looking for any clues
That's the app I
that would
use for
help
my
lead us.
singing.
And so this was a warrant written to Smule to see if they had any information that would help us.
And I believe you testified earlier that the warrants written up through 2020-61 were looking for the children.
That is correct.
What changed after 2020-61?
Because after this time, we would have been past the time where June 9th, where we located the children on Chad Daybell's property.
What was the purpose of 2020-74?
So this is in conjunction with the FBI with their CAST team.
And do you know approximately when it was that warrant was obtained?
This would have been, I believe, within a couple weeks after the 9th.
When you say the 9th, can you?
Sorry, June 9th, 2020.
And just for purposes of clarity, what event happened on June 9th, 2020?
That is the day that we located the children's bodies on the Daybell property.
Okay. So going back to that warrant, what was the purpose of that warrant with the FBI?
So again, we hadn't, I mean, yes, we found the children. However, we didn't have other answers of why and whatnot. And we were still looking at trying to determine devices that would have been located on that property that could have been involved in the children being there. So the purpose in this was to take specialized equipment onto the property close to the locations where the children were found and get signal strengths from cellular towers and be able to precisely say what tower, what the signal strength was and so forth. The FBI did that part. I was with them. However, I was just really the one that obtained the warrant and served it at the property.
And then they did the work on that.
That is correct.
The next warrant, 2020, it looks like -76 and 77.
Yeah, so that's two different warrants, but
When approximately were those obtained?
I'm sorry.
When approximately were those obtained?
That would have been also shortly within a few weeks after the children were found on that June 9th date.
Okay. And it looks like that's a warrant for a geofence.
That is correct.
Can you
A couple
explain?
different ones.
Okay. Can you explain for the jury what a geofence is?
So again, the theory here is as I explained in the previous one, we're trying to find out, if you will, devices that would have been in the vicinity on certain dates and times where we believe the children had been buried on the property. So when I say a 250-meter range of the center of the properties in this, so if you were to take and put a dot and then draw a circle 250 meters out, which is approximately like 2.5 football fields in circumference. And so our thinking was we had dates we believed, we had times we believed. We wanted to try and find anyone who had any significant time in those areas during those dates and those times. And that's both for 202 North, 1900 East, which was Chad's property, and 565 Pioneer Road, number 175, which is where Lori was. So we're just looking for commonality. We were looking, are we missing anything? Is there anybody else involved here that we need to be looking at? And that's why we wrote this, is to see if there's other people we need to be looking at besides who we already were looking at.
And so that warrant was written to Google, correct?
That is correct.
So just to help the jury understand, is when you say a geofence, are you looking for Google location data within that area?
Yes, that would just be what Google records have, not Verizon, not anybody else, just Google, because that's a very common thread that everybody uses. So yeah, it was just to Google.
And again, we had talked earlier about opting out of Google location services. If someone, to your knowledge and experience, if someone had their Google location data turned off, would they show up in that geofence?
Not by Google records, no.
Okay. So tell us the process of obtaining that warrant and how you obtained that information.
On the return,
Yes.
okay, so you have to understand, especially, well, like Chad's property is more rural. But where Lori's property is it's high density. And so when you ask for this, Google sends you thousands of pages of people that have passed through your fence, your 250-meter fence, whether they are on the road, whatever. So it's massive amounts. But Google doesn't tell you who they are in these warrants. They just, Google assigns everybody a number. It's a Google association number is what it's called. And so everybody who has an account or whatever has a number associated with them. So when we get this return, the return shows, if you will, this device passed through there, was in that area for, this is just an example.
Okay.
5 seconds. And you can see as it maybe passes on the road in that fenced area. But it doesn't say that was John Doe. It says this was Google account number, user number, this with a large digit number. So this warrant didn't establish who these people were, is I guess what I'm getting at, just a number associated with them.
And then did you do a follow-up warrant based on that initial return from Google?
So the theory was to take that warrant and all that information, plug it into a system, and then try and narrow it down to people who would have been in that area or both areas in common during those timeframes. So, so after plugging all that information in, we came down to possibly 12 devices that we felt could be, if you will, devices of interest. And so am I explaining that okay? That, and then we wrote, that would have led to 2021-10 here.
All right. And explain what you asked for in 2021-10.
Okay, so 2021-10 would have been us saying, okay, these are some Google numbers that are of interest to us.
Okay. Not that I'm not a tech geek, and not that I don't think all parts of this trial are important, but it's not incredibly interesting or easy to follow. And in the Karen Reed trial, this testimony of Katie McLaughlin got rather interesting because the defense team was able to possibly impeach her testimony by showing that she is a friend of the friend of the person in the house. And I want to explore that. Are you guys okay with that, with switching over now? Because they have left. I'm going to show you right now. They did leave for the jury view. And this here is footage of everyone leaving the courthouse.
Karen, does Alan go scorched earth all the way? Is that what he does?
Really? Really? Am I going to do this for you today? Grant.
So the camera person in this is Grant Ellis, and he's the reporter that's been reporting with a bias toward the Commonwealth. And you hear the turtle rider type people out there protecting Karen and confronting him and saying, don't you dare say things to her that are mean or nasty, when that is their entire shtick. Their entire shtick is to get out there and say mean and nasty things to people. So I find that to be a little rich.
When I think you have the right. There you go.
The woman holding Karen's
Hey, it's not
arm.
my fault you didn't
Grant,
come, Chief.
Grant.
I'm in a bad mood.
All right, well, don't take it out on people that are going through worse than you.
Fine. Can you attack me? How was your day, Chrissy?
My day is going good as long as you're
One question.
respect.
I'm being respectful. People were mad at me for talking to you, Chrissy. I was like, Chrissy's nice.
Yeah, I am nice as long as you respect my and my
One
family. I'm
question.
nice. I swear to God, if it's not on my question, I'm
That was not out of line. I actually feel bad.
Exactly, Harlot. Exactly. It's so silly. I mean, you know what's interesting is, you know, if you had no idea that this trial was going on, right? And you saw, you were like completely, your head's in the sand, and you saw that there's this big crowd and there's all these cameras, and you were driving by, you would think, oh my God, there's a star in town. There must be, oh my God, it's Bon Jovi, or it's, oh my God, it's Taylor Swift. Oh, no, no, no. It's this person I've never known, who's never made a name for herself outside of her own industry, right? Who is on trial for murder, and some propagandists put it on the map. This is 2024. So we've seen enough of that. So this is Katie McLaughlin on the stand. Now, she was on the stand on yesterday, so they continued with her today, and let's watch it. And let's try to suffer through the judges breathing through the mic.
Now, I have a few more questions for you. So, I turn your attention to the period of time you testified about yesterday when you're at Mr. O'Keefe is in the back of the ambulance. With respect to his clothing, what, if any, observations did you make in regards to that clothing?
He had, in terms of what he was wearing,
First, in terms of what he was wearing.
he was wearing jeans. He had on a dark colored light zip up jacket. And I noticed one sneaker.
Now, with regard to that clothing, what, if any, observations did you make in regard to the condition of that clothing?
It was soaked through.
As far as tears or holes or anything else with regard to that clothing, what, if any, observations did you make of that?
I didn't see any.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 18. May I approach the witness room?
Yes.
Okay.
You hear the way the judge said that? Yes. She always sounds exasperated.
Now, first, Firefighter McLaughlin, do you recognize what's up on the screen as exhibit 18?
Do I recognize,
What it is?
what it is?
Yes.
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
The address of the call, 34 Fairview Road.
Now, with respect to this photograph, do you observe within it or where Mr. O'Keefe was on the ground when you first arrived?
From this angle, no, I don't.
And if you could, it was not on the photograph. Is it off to the left, the right, or where would it be in relation to this photograph?
To the left, I would say.
And about how far off frame do you believe it was?
I'm not sure. So My view of the call was, my reference point wasn't a house on either side. The patient was off the road. So my view of this call was the patient was on the side of the road. The only thing that I noted was a fire hydrant. So in relation to, I know it was to the left of a house, but I'm not sure exactly how far left it would be from this picture, from this angle.
So your memory is to the left of the house near a fire hydrant, is that correct?
Yes.
Take that down. I have no further questions.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So, Doxy is right. The defense has a field day with this witness.
You responded to the call of an unresponsive male in the snow at 34 Fairview. That was the address you recalled, correct?
Correct.
The house you just looked at, that is in fact 34 Fairview, right?
Correct.
As Mr. O'Keefe was being transported by ambulance, you were instructed by firefighter Flamati to get information about the victim from Karen Reed, correct?
He wasn't being transported by the ambulance at that time. He was on the stretcher. And Tony, who was at the head of the stretcher, asked me to get information from Miss Reed about the patient, but he wasn't being transported in the ambulance at that time.
Who's Tony?
Firefighter Flamati.
Got it. When you did, in fact, did you follow those directives?
I did.
When you finally approached Miss Reed in order to get that medical history as best you could, what did the scene look like? Who was with you or around you?
So they started to move the stretcher towards the ambulance. Miss Reed was sort of, I guess I would describe it as moving around the scene. So she was moving, kind of going in circles. So I was really just focused on her, trying to get her to converse with me and get those questions. So that I wasn't really noticing anything else at that point. I was more just trying to contact her, and she was moving around.
What were you wearing at the time?
I had my like winter fire jacket on.
What color is it?
It's yellow and red.
Bright yellow for safety purposes.
Yes.
When you began your actual questioning, once everybody sort of stood still, and you began your.
I feel as I'm looking at Karen Reed that she's trying to maintain a neutral face, but she's having a hard time doing it. Does that make sense? It's as if she knows what's coming. She knows what's coming and she's trying to hide it. And she's like, I know who you are and I know who you know, and wait for it.
Questioning of Miss Reed. You were standing in one spot. Miss Reed was standing to your right. Is that right?
Well, the questioning started, as I said, she was moving around the scene. So the questioning was ongoing as she was moving around to different locations. I don't know exactly how many of the questions I got out during the time that she was moving around. At one point, we did come to a stop. And at that point, she was to my right.
That's the point I want to focus your attention on, if I could. When you came to a stop, that's the point at which you recall the statement being made that you attribute to my client.
Yes.
Okay. And in that group, who was there? I want to make sure I understand this exactly.
So there was Miss Reed to my right. There was a civilian woman to my left. There was a police officer who was not directly across from me, but I would say maybe diagonal to me, closer to Miss Reed.
Your Honor, I'm holding a photograph. This has been shown to the Commonwealth. May I approach?
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin, a still photograph. I'm going to ask you to take a quick look at that photograph and look up after you've studied it for a second and tell me if you recognize people that are in that photograph.
I recognize people in it.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes. Is this an exhibit or are you moving to introduce it?
I'm moving to introduce it. It has not been introduced as yet.
Okay. So go ahead and have the witness adopt it first.
Sure. Do you see the person closest to frame? Closest to the camera?
Yes.
In what appears to be a yellow and red jacket.
Yes.
Who's that?
That would be me.
Who's to your right?
It appears to be Miss Reed,
And to your left?
a civilian woman,
And across, as you said, sort of diagonal, closer to Miss Reed is,
a police officer.
do you know that officer's name, by the way?
I don't know his name.
Okay. Your Honor, with that, I would ask that this be marked as next in order.
Okay. Is there any objection?
No objection.
So we are going to remark these exhibits today because of the problems that I indicated at sidebar. Evidence. It's my responsibility to make sure the folks, it's my responsibility to make sure the record is intact. And you've heard numbers 1, 3, 309, 247. We need to straighten this out to make sure it's appropriate for you. You know what, Madam Clerk, Madam Court Reporter, just mark it as the next exhibit number, whatever in the hundreds that is, and we'll take care of this today. I don't want to waste your time, folks, while we do this, but it's very important that we do it. All right.
Judge's stressed.
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin, this is the time or the scene that you told us about when you heard the statement that you've attributed to my client, correct?
Sorry, say that again?
Sure. This is a moment in time, it captures a moment in time when you're standing there. To your right is Karen Reed, which you've described. To your left is a civilian female, which you've described. And across from you is an officer, which you've also described.
Yes.
So this would be the time or close in time to the time that you heard the statement that you attribute to Ms. Reed, correct?
Yes.
The first time you ever made that official report or an official report to law enforcement regarding that statement was January 30th, 2022, correct?
Well, yes and no. The statement was made in front of the police officer, so that would technically be the first time that statement was made to a police officer in my presence. And then, yes, I testified to it on January 30th, as you said.
You said it on January 30th. You weren't testifying under oath, correct?
Okay. Said it.
Okay.
Yes.
My question was really, and I appreciate you clarifying, my question was really the first time you actually told this statement to any law enforcement officer was on January 30th.
Yes.
Okay, we can take that down. That was when you met with Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes.
Obviously, that was very close in time to the event. It was the next day. Is that right?
Yes.
The events were close.
The 29th. Yeah. So it would be the next day.
Right. 29th, 30th.
Yeah.
Okay. The events were fresh in your mind at that time?
Yes.
You obviously knew about the importance of that interview. You knew that it dealt with a police officer who had passed?
I knew it was important to talk to the police about what I heard.
And you wanted to be accurate?
Yes.
You wanted to be as detailed as you possibly could?
Yes.
And you understand that memories, obviously, they get a little worse with time, not better with time, right?
Sure.
The closer in time you are to the event, the fresher your memory is going to be about the details of that event. You would agree with that, right?
Sure.
That depends.
You told Trooper Proctor the day after the event on January 30th, that the statement that you attribute to my client was actually made to the female, not to you in response to your questioning. That's what you told Trooper Proctor, correct?
I don't have those notes in front of me, so I don't know that I can tell you that that's correct, but the statement was made in response to my question. However, the Miss Reed was looking at the civilian woman as she said that.
Does it refresh your recollection that what
Don't read what you think refreshes a recollection. You can show or you
That
cannot
refresh-
read it. Yes.
take a look at the highlighted portion of that report and look up when you're finished.
See how the judge has to interject so much in this trial? Her own lawyering. I find that unusual in this trial. I've never seen a judge interject so much lawyering.
Okay,
May I?
sure.
Your Honor, may I
Yes.
approach? Does that refresh your recollection about what you told Trooper Proctor on January 30th?
Yes.
And you told Trooper Proctor,
Don't
quote,
let her,
in turn
hold on. I'll see it said.
So then they have this sidebar, and then they end up bringing the jury out.
Yes, if you're saying that's in quotation marks in the in that, then yes.
That's what's in the report.
Okay.
And I'm not, you don't have to agree with me. I'm asking yes or no questions, not okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So in fact, what you told Trooper Proctor was that Karen Reed,
Yeah,
the
Harlan.
female to your left, and said 4 times, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, correct?
Yes.
And have you since learned that the name or identity of the female that was standing to your left?
No.
You're aware that the female that was standing to your left reported the exact same statement?
No.
Are you aware that the female standing to your left reported that exact same statement as, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Did I hit him?
No, I'm not aware of that.
You then went back to the ambulance after you heard that statement that you believed you heard my client state.
Yes.
You opened the ambulance door, correct?
Yes.
That was the back door,
The side door.
the side door. And there were 2 firefighter paramedics in that ambulance at the time, correct?
I believe there were more than 2 at that time.
2 of them included firefighter Nuttall and firefighter Flamani.
Yes.
And at that point, you told them what you believed you had just heard.
So I went into the back of the ambulance. I said, this is his name. This is his date of birth. She says he doesn't have any medical history or allergies, doesn't take daily medications. And then I said, she's saying I hit him. And firefighter Nuttall motioned to his face and said something.
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask another question.
So the answer to my question is,
Hey, not
yes,
Yachty.
you told in front of Flamati and Nuttall the phrase, I hit him.
Yes.
Did you write that in any report?
I don't write a report in this scenario of my job.
Let her finish the answer, please.
So there are 2 people that will write reports in my department on a call.
See, the judge interjects when it should be the Commonwealth objecting. See what I mean? This is messy, 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 messy.
One being the lead paramedic and the other being the officer who's on scene. So those are the people that write reports, and I was neither of those, so I did not write that in a report.
Okay.
That's correct.
So let me ask the question again. You didn't write it in any report?
No.
You didn't write it in any notes?
No.
You didn't document that statement in any way whatsoever, correct?
other than my interview with Proctor and my subsequent testimony.
You didn't document that statement in any way yourself, did you?
No.
Since January 30th, in that conversation that we just talked about with Trooper Proctor, your statement has evolved. Is that right?
I don't know how to answer that.
You testified yesterday to something quite different
Not quite different.
than what you testified, I'm sorry, than what you stated to Trooper Proctor.
Respectfully, I think my testimony has been pretty consistent.
You testified to something yesterday quite different in context than what you told Trooper Proctor. Isn't that right?
I don't know that that's right.
Well, you told Trooper Proctor, Karen Reed looked at a female standing to your left, said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Right?
Yes.
Yesterday, you told these jurors that Karen Reed said, I hit him, and an officer said, you what? And she repeated, I hit him, and the officer immediately turned and went to find another sergeant. Is that right or no? Yes or no?
No, there was more to that testimony.
That's
I
not what you
think.
said yesterday?
I think I said more than that.
Oh my goodness gracious. That is splitting hairs that are already split. Are you kidding me?
That than what you just repeated.
Is what I said.
So if the course of events, if the timeline of events of when she said I hit him and who said who did what next is out of line, does it matter when she said I hit him, 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 I hit him?
Consistent with what you said yesterday. There's a lot of things that you said, more of.
Don't get me wrong, this is his job, and that's their entire premise, their entire theory of their defense is they're all in cahoots. They framed Karen Reed. They framed Karen Reed, right? So he has to do this, but it'll be interesting to see if this works with the jury, because this is splitting a hair that's already split.
I'm asking, is that the sum and substance of what you told these jurors yesterday?
Yes.
So you would agree that from that time till yesterday, your story has evolved. It's changed.
Would I agree with that?
No.
I don't know that I agree with that.
You think the story that you told Trooper Proctor is exactly the same
I
story?
understand what you're saying. So I understand what you're saying.
So has your story evolved?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So that has now been translated to the defense got her. They got her to agree that the story has evolved. But does that mean that her testimony of her saying, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, is untruthful or inaccurate, especially when different people have said it?
Ms. McLaughlin, who's Caitlin Albert?
I went to high school with somebody named Caitlin Albert.
Somebody named Caitlin Albert.
I went to high school with somebody named Caitlin Albert.
So do you know Caitlin Albert?
I do.
You're friends with Caitlin Albert?
I would say more acquaintances, not close friends.
How do you describe an acquaintance?
I would say that we have mutual friends, so we might see each other occasionally because of mutual friends, but we don't have a one-on-one friendship or hang out regularly.
Who's her dad?
I don't know.
Do you know who her family is?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach her?
Yes.
I can't believe that the defense, I mean, the Commonwealth finally objected to they send the jury out and have a discussion.
Court officer, know when you're ready for me to come back out.
All rise for the court, please.
We got the whirling fan.
You can ask her questions, Mr. Jackson, about her vacation that you mentioned, the drinking that you talked about, the relationship with Ms. Albert. I've forgotten the first name already. And Caitlin, and about the house. So you can ask her questions about that. And let's see, you can show her these exhibits or these marked for identification if you need to. You may have trouble actually getting those into evidence, but I'm going to let you find out. You can ask her to identify them, how long ago they were, things like that.
Thank you.
All right, could we bring in Ms. McLaughlin, please? Yes. And Commonwealth, you just saw these today. I'm sorry, I don't remember if I asked you that.
Yes, and yes.
And you were objecting that, you objected to sidebar that these come in at all?
Correct.
Okay. Oh, here's the fourth one, I'm sorry. Mr. Jackson, here's the last one. The presence of the jury, and you're still under oath and you have to answer them truthfully, okay?
Okay.
I would hope so.
McLaughlin, when, just briefly as a predicate, when you stepped out, I just want to make sure we're very clear. Did you have a conversation with anybody from the Commonwealth between the time you walked out of court and just now?
Just about if I needed a drink of water or to use the restroom.
Okay, but nothing about the substance of your testimony?
No.
Ms. McLaughlin, I asked you before we broke if you know who Caitlin Albert is.
Yes.
You said that you went to high school with somebody by that name, correct?
Yes.
You in fact know that person as a friend, correct?
I know her.
She's more than an acquaintance.
I would say she's an acquaintance. She's not a close friend.
She in a group of friends of yours?
We have mutual friends.
How long have you known her?
Probably since high school.
When you say, and I don't want to ask your age, I wouldn't do that. How many years, how long of a span of years have you known her?
Since high school, so maybe 10.
And you know her family, generally?
I don't.
You don't know anything about her family?
I don't know her family.
Had you ever been to her house?
Not that I recall ever being there.
Not that you recall, or you haven't? Those are two different things.
I don't recall ever being there.
Okay, so you might have been there, you just don't recall.
I don't recall ever being there.
Okay. If I were to ask you if you have ever been to her house, yes or no, you cannot answer that because you don't know. You cannot recall, correct?
Sounds to me like she's been there.
I would say, I would lean towards no. I have no recollection of ever being at her house.
Oh my God, Sparkles, are you okay?
Yes.
May I approach you on that?
Yes.
I'm just going to leave all four of these up here. I know what they look like. Can you do me a favor and take a look at the first document? What does that document appear to be?
It says Caitlin's friends.
What does it look like? That's a printout of.
I'm sorry?
What does that look like? It's a printout of. Does that look like it's from Facebook or one of the social media apps?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Some social media.
Okay. Under Caitlin's friends, do you see your handle, for lack of a better phrase?
I do.
Okay. Is that you?
Yes.
Okay. Can you look at the next photograph? before we talk about that next photograph, which is, I should go in order for the record, Your Honor. The first one was H. Before we talk about I, which is the next photograph, how long have you been social media friends, quote, friends with Caitlin Albert?
I don't know.
More than 5 years?
Probably.
More than 8 years?
I don't know.
The second photograph, or the second document, appears to be a photograph. It's I, is that right?
Yes,
Do you see yourself in that photograph?
I do.
Do you see Caitlin in that photograph?
I do.
When was that photograph taken?
I have no idea.
Where was that photograph taken?
I don't know.
You have no idea how long ago that was?
I don't.
What was the event that was depicted, or that is depicted in that photograph?
I don't know.
Is that local, or was that on a trip somewhere?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably local. If it's a beach, I don't remember. I've never been away like to a beach on vacation with all of these people, so probably local.
When we say local, let's talk about local. I don't mean, we may have different definitions. Where would that be? What beach? I'm not as familiar with the location.
I'm not sure.
Maybe on the Cape?
Possibly.
Right. Do you recognize some of the other folks in that photograph?
I do.
Matter of fact, there's a lot of people in that photograph, right?
There's a lot of people in it.
Did you take a trip with all those people at some point in the past?
Take a trip.
To the beach.
Did I go to the beach at some point with these people? Yes.
Okay. When did you go to the beach with all those folks?
I don't know. I don't know when this picture is from. It seems old to me, but.
Well, you can see yourself. I mean,
yeah.
What was that? Did you say it seems old to you?
Yeah, to me.
Okay.
This isn't like a recent to me.
how old do you think that photograph is?
I don't know. It could be around high school. I'm not sure.
And I know Mr. Jackson didn't want to ask you how old you are. When did you get out of high school?
2014.
Okay.
I graduated.
So could that have
10
been
years ago.
around 2014?
It could be.
So you've known Caitlin for at least that long.
Yeah.
And when I say travel, I mean travel outside of Canton, gone places with her, correct?
Yes.
You've posed for photographs with her,
Yes.
with other folks.
Yes.
It's like socializing and partying, correct?
Looks like socializing.
Maybe a small vacation.
I've never been on vacation with a big group of people like this.
Well, that doesn't look like what would you call that if that's not like a mini vacation?
A day at the beach?
A day at the beach. Okay. So maybe a day vacation.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh my God, a
Let's go to the next
day.
photograph. Jay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I do need to remind myself. That photograph looks a little older, correct?
They both look old to me. I don't know when they're from.
I'm going to ask you the same questions about that. These aren't trick questions. I don't want to waste your time. What's that from?
I don't remember specifically what or where this is.
Do you see yourself in that photograph?
I do.
Do you see Caitlin in that photograph?
I do.
You're all posing for the camera, correct?
Yes.
Music City Mom and anybody else wanting to know. We are watching Katie McLaughlin, one of the first responders. The jury in the Karen Reed trial, the jury is not in. The defense is asking her questions about her relationship with one of the occupants in the house where Karen Reed may have backed over John O'Keefe. So, because the reason they're doing this is because the defense's entire theory of the case is that the first responders and the Canton and Massachusetts State Police have conspired to frame Karen Reed. And and he wants to create very specific ties to this first responder and one of the occupants of the house. And he's now walking her through social media photos that she's been in with this occupant of the house. And she has, you know, she's been, as other people have noticed in the chat, been rather evasive. Now, when this is all over, when we get through this particular line of questioning and testimony, I'm going to argue both sides of the case on this, okay, for you. I'm going to argue as from my perspective why this is good for the defense and why it won't work for the defense. In my view.
What's the location?
I don't know.
No idea.
I don't.
This is yet another socializing event with Caitlin that you can't recall.
I don't know where this is exactly.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your words. Go ahead.
I don't know where this is exactly.
So you've had so many socializing events with Caitlin and other folks that you can't pinpoint this one as opposed to any of the others that you've had?
No, I'm saying I can't. These photos are old. I don't know. I don't remember where these were or the circumstances around them. That's what I'm saying.
You see how you're dressed in that photo?
Yes.
You see how you see the other friends that are there with you?
Yeah.
How many people would you estimate are in that photo?
Do you want me to count how many people?
Give me it. I don't have the photo in front of me, so just give me it. Is it more than 5?
12.
12 people.
Ish.
Okay. Do you recognize those dozen people?
I do.
Did you go on a day trip with those dozen people?
Yeah, possibly.
When?
I don't know.
Where?
I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't remember.
How many times have you gone on
She's being a little
day
sassy.
trips with those dozen people?
I don't know.
How about turning back to photograph I?
You
How
can
many
tell
times
she's
have you gone
getting
on day trips,
irritated.
socialized with those number of people? It looks like probably double that, 20 or 25 people.
I don't know.
That's a big group of friends of yours that includes Caitlin Albert, right?
A big group of mutual friends.
So it's not just that she's a mutual friend, she's a friend. Isn't that right?
As I said before, I would consider myself more of an acquaintance. We have mutual friends. I wouldn't consider her a close friend, but yeah, I mean that would be my answer.
You basically grew up with her, went to high school with her.
I didn't grow up with her. I went to high school with her.
When I say grow up with her, I mean you grew up in the same town as her, right?
Grew up in the same town.
Went to the same high school as she did.
Yes.
Socialized with the same friends as she did.
Yes.
Went on day trips with her.
Yes.
And have all the same friend group, right?
I don't know that we have all the same friend group. These are people that we're both friends with.
But you don't consider her anything more than just an acquaintance.
I think I described it to you.
Yeah, asked and
My
answered.
question is, you don't consider her to be anything more than an acquaintance.
I wouldn't consider her to be a close friend.
Now let's take a look at the last photograph. Describe what's in that photograph.
It's a picture of me. Caitlin is in it, and there's seems to be other people in it as well.
May I approach?
Yes.
Both of you can take it. Sorry, I just want to drop it on you. That's a close-up photograph of who?
Caitlin, and I'm also in it.
And you're doing what in the photograph as it relates to Caitlin?
It seems like I'm kind of kneeling down next to her.
Touching her?
Can I see that for just a minute, please?
Look at Judge.
I'm sorry, can you show me you?
So just for the record, may I approach one more time, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Take a look at that one more time. You're sort of just behind Caitlin in that photograph?
Yes.
Caitlin's the one drinking the beer?
Yes.
You got your right arm around her?
Yes.
You both appear to be wearing swimwear,
Yes.
bathing suits,
Yes.
and you're giving some sort of sign with your left hand?
No, I'm not.
Is that somebody else's hand that I saw? Maybe that's Caitlin's.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have the photograph in front of me. I don't have it committed to memory. Looks like that's a photograph that you and Caitlin posed for together, correct?
It seems like it's a close up of a bigger, like a picture. It seems to be zoomed in on a group of people.
Which was posted on social media.
Okay.
Is that right?
Are you telling me that?
I'm asking you that. Have you ever seen that posted on social media?
I don't recall seeing this picture, but if it was on social media, then okay.
How long ago was that picture taken?
I don't know.
Who took the picture?
I don't know.
Where were you when the photograph was taken?
Probably at a beach if we're wearing bathing suits.
Probably at a beach or at a beach?
Well, I can't see a beach in the picture. We're in bathing suits. It could be at a beach.
Right. Do you recognize the bathing suit that you're wearing in the photograph?
No.
You literally don't even recognize your own outfit?
No.
So that doesn't help define where you were and when that photograph was taken?
No, sir.
Do any of these photographs remind you that you've been to Caitlin's house at some point in your friendship with her?
No.
Has Caitlin ever been to your house?
Not to my recollection.
When was the last time you talked to Caitlin?
I don't remember exactly. It's probably been a few years.
When was the last time you went to an event, socializing event with Caitlin?
Again, I don't remember exactly.
Did you talk to Caitlin at any point at or on or around January 29th, 2022?
No.
When was the last time you had talked to Caitlin before January 29th, 2022?
I don't know.
Would it have been a day before, a week before, a month before?
No, I don't talk to her. Like I said, we're not like close friends, so it's like pretty infrequent that we would interact. So I don't know when the last time before that.
What about texting or Snapchatting or communicating in that way?
I don't remember.
Would it have been a week before the 29th?
I don't think so.
You don't think so, or you know so?
I don't think so.
What about after the 29th, after you responded to 34 Fairview? You ever have any communication with her?
Not that I can recall.
So is that something that you think you might remember if you responded to a house of her father where there's a police officer dead or dying on the yard, on the lawn, 30 feet from the front door? You might have had a conversation with Caitlin?
Now he's bad.
I've never had a conversation with Caitlin about that call or this case.
Did you ever contact any of your other friends about the fact that you responded to Caitlin's parents' house?
No.
Were you ever asked about this relationship that you had with Caitlin Albert, this friendship that you had with Caitlin Albert at or near the time of the 29th of January?
No.
Did you ever disclose to anybody that you had a relationship with Caitlin Albert at or around the time of this event?
No.
When you went to 34 Fairview, you knew that that was the Albert family home, correct?
No.
When did you learn that it was the Albert? You now know that.
I know that now.
When did you find that?
I don't know. I don't recall. It was some point after. It was, but I don't know when.
Would it have been the next day?
No.
You and firefighter Flamati and firefighter Nuttall were all discussing this case pretty intently after this event, correct?
No.
It's not that often in the little town of Canton that a police officer is found dead or dying on another police officer's lawn. Wouldn't you agree with that?
We responded to a medical call. So the conversation after the fact was at the hospital, debriefing the call, going over what happened, what we use for equipment, what we need, and just like that was the extent of the conversation.
Would you agree that this case, given its notoriety, is discussed at the fire station almost daily?
I don't know when I'm not there, but it does get brought up.
And obviously the fact that the house belongs to, or belonged at the time, to the Albert family is part of that discussion.
I don't know. Like I said, it gets brought up, but I just avoid it. I don't engage in the conversations.
It was certainly enough of a subject matter that you learned, or to you after the 29th, that house belongs to Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, parents of your friend Caitlin Albert, right?
Well, at that point, it was on the news consistently, so I don't know where that like information was introduced, but
it was pretty early on after the 29th.
I don't recall when it was known that that was the case.
I mean, you didn't learn that that was the Albert family home last week.
No.
You've known it for going on 2.5 years.
I don't know exactly when I learned that that was the house.
I realize you don't know exactly, Ms. McLaughlin. I'm not asking you the day you learned. I'm asking you, you've known this basically through the lifespan of this case.
At some point after I learned it.
Right. I'm just trying to figure out about how long after, a week after, a month after.
I'm not sure.
But it was more toward January 29th than it was yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
One other, just a couple of brief questions.
Look at Karen. She looks very smug
Do you
now.
know any of Caitlin's siblings?
No.
You don't know Brian Albert Jr.?
No.
Do you know of any of her extended family that might be a little closer in age to you, like Colin Albert?
No.
Have you ever met any of them?
Not that I recall.
She's looking very pleased.
I don't remember meeting any of them.
Your Honor, that's all I have right now.
All right, Mr. Lally, any questions?
Sure. Just a few, Your Honor.
Okay, Lally, there's plenty of room for redirect on this. Plenty of room.
So, Ms. McLaughlin, you're not friends with Caitlin Albert, correct?
I'm sorry.
You're not friends with Caitlin Albert, is that correct?
I would say she's an acquaintance, not a close friend.
Now, you were shown some photographs of you in a fairly large group with Caitlin Albert, correct?
Yes.
You don't know when those were, correct?
I don't know exactly.
You don't know where you were when those were taken, correct?
No, not exactly. They seem old.
And just to back up, you knew her in high school, but you weren't friends in high school, right?
I would categorize our relationship as always being just acquaintances. I knew her. We had some mutual friends, but we were never close friends. We don't have a one-on-one relationship.
And as far as high school versus post-high school, would you see her more so during high school, the high school years, or after you graduated?
Well, probably more in high school just because you're there every day. But then afterwards, yeah, it was only here and there. Like I said, like mutual friends. So maybe events for mutual friends, I might run into her.
to be clear, and I think you made reference to it, but that last photograph that's marked as K, that seems to be a cropped or sort of zoomed in of a larger photo. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, as far as each of those photos you were shown, you're present in a photo with Caitlin Albert in a much larger group, correct?
Yes.
Have you ever hung out or socialized with Caitlin Albert outside of the setting of a large group?
No.
You've never been to her
That's a
house
good question.
before that date of January 29th that you know of, correct?
Correct.
She's never been to your house that you know of, correct?
Correct.
Ooh, a European hornet, huh? Wow. Stay alive, Sparkles.
Now, as far as that first one, that's as far as social media is concerned, as far as a friends list, and without sort of doing it, I'm sort of putting that in air quotes. How many friends would you say you have on social media in total?
I don't know. Maybe over 500. I don't know.
And of those 500 people, how many of those 500 people would you consider actual friends?
Much less than that. Less than 10.
All right, why don't we wrap this up, Mr. Lally?
Sure. Just when it comes to that day that you responded, you're working with the fire department, you responded to a call on January 29th to a home, or as you say, to somewhere on the side of the road. Did you have any idea of whose house that was adjacent to where the treatment was concerned with regard to your patient, Ms. Rose?
No.
I know.
Okay. All right. So there was an objection that this was in violation of Rule 14 to admit these exhibits, Mr. Lally. That's what you said, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I agree. So the exhibits don't come in, but based on this voir dire and the answers, I'm going to give you some leeway on exactly what you did. Okay. The relationship, the socialization and the extent of it, friends on social media, those areas. You didn't quite get everything that you mentioned at sidebar you thought you'd get. So that's not coming in.
So
If you
stay within the parameters.
So why don't you come over here then, just because?
So to explain that, what just happened is the judge overruled sustained an objection to exhibits coming in by the defense showing those pictures of Katie McLaughlin with the occupants of the house. So he can question her about her social media connections, but he cannot show those exhibits of pictures of her with the occupants of the house with the jury in the room. So even though Karen was looking real smug and happy about that line of questioning, they did not get their way in that it was an evidence voir dire. So then the jury comes back. They have a sidebar. Hope you're doing okay, Sparkles. And they had their sidebar, and now they bring the jury back in, and they continue questioning with the jury there.
Time to time, there are things that I need to discuss with the lawyers, as you said.
Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. McLaughlin, thank you for your patience. When we last left off, I was asking you about your relationship with Caitlin Albert. You recall that?
Yes.
I want to ask you a few more questions about that. You and Caitlin Albert have known each other for how long?
Since high school.
Which is, give me a span of time.
So probably about 10 years.
You have traveled with Caitlin Albert and friends. When I say traveled, I don't mean to exotic locations. I mean day trips, etc.
Yes,
You have a group of mutual friends together, correct?
we have mutual friends. Correct.
Those mutual friends.
So basically, they go through the same line of questioning, but with the jury there. So now I'm going to tell you why. I'll tell you the different sides that I think, and then we're going to jump back over to Daybell because they're back in session and after a break, and they have left the Karen retrial to go to the viewing of the crime scene. So here's what I think on this. Let's step into our jury shoes, okay? We are everyday people. We all have everyday experiences. So on the side of the Commonwealth, on the side of the state, we all have social media connections. We all have high school friends. And especially in the era of social media, we have these friend groups where we end up in pictures with people. And we go on these, especially in the last 20 years, there are, high school excursions, and these friend groups end up in social media pictures with each other, right? And most people in the world either have had these experiences themselves, or they have kids or people in their lives who have had these experiences. So, him picking at that, I don't think is going to sway a jury unless he can specifically tie this girl or any of the people that he puts on the witness stand to some sort of conspiracy, showing messages between the people saying, let's tell them this, let's tell them that, let's say this, let's say that, right? But he hasn't shown that. Now, on the other side of things, she was acting a little bit defensive. She was acting a little bit evasive. He is showing that there was some sort of knowledge or relationship between her and that person, and that isn't something that was brought out before. So, when you're on a jury, you don't like to be surprised by these kinds of connections, especially when there is when there's an air of conspiracy, and there's like this conspiracy in the air. So, if the jury was allowed to see those pictures of her, that might have sealed the deal more, but that evidence didn't come in because it was probably because it was hearsay. Now, here's where I ultimately go with this. Let's say that the jury is convinced that these two people were friends, right? Which wouldn't be unusual in a town like Canton, where it sounds like there's a lot of people know a lot of people. It's kind of a community feel there, right? I mean, I've even had people come into my chat say, I'm from there, I know a lot of people there. This person's well known. It's kind of a tight-knit community where people know each other's names. I even get the sense that there's a strong I did solo sock, sorry about that. I think it sounds like there's even strong social media communities built around Canton, right? You even get the sense in that courtroom that there's a strong community feeling in Canton. So people know each other, and that's not unusual. So let's stipulate that most of the people in this case are going to either know each other or be acquainted with each other. For me to be convinced that there was some sort of, specific conspiracy between those people, I would have to also be convinced that it changed the outcome of the case, that it actually, that these people talked to each other and they intended to talk to each other in order to change the outcome of the case. That is a long way to go. That's a long way to go. And, so you have to go from, I was just doing my job as a first responder, and then I found out that, my acquaintance from high school or somebody from my friend group in high school lived there. So we started talking and found out there are so many steps to take to get to the point of we all talked and decided to tell the same story and frame this woman and frame his girlfriend. They're going to have to, they have a lot to prove. And also, however, the burden of proof is on the Commonwealth that Karen Reed backed over this guy accidentally without really, setting out premeditatively to kill him, right? But that she did this. So the burden is on them. But the defense has really taken on a big, big, big job to prove their theory that this was framed. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not totally convinced yet. And I know that you're all still talking about hornets in the chat. I sincerely hope that the hornet is gone or will be gone soon. Before we jump over to the Chad Daybell trial again, because they're back in session, I want to introduce a new thing I'm going to be doing here on Disorder in the Court, and that is the legal term of the day. We are going to, as long as we're going to sit here and talk about, oh no, it's okay. I hope you're okay, Sparkles. I hope everything's okay. Right, Tiggy Girl, they have to create doubt, but it has to be reasonable doubt. Not just doubt. It has to be reasonable doubt, right? And that's important. But we were talking about whether a witness can be badgered. So I looked it up. What does badgering a witness actually mean? Okay. And because I said something about whether this witness was being badgered or not. And so I wanted to look it up, and I'm going to be doing this now because as long as we're going to be sitting here, we are all, most of us lay people. I don't think I have any lawyers in the chat. I'm not a lawyer, but if we're going to be sitting here, picking apart legal cases in our lay positions, we should at least know kind of what we're talking about. So badgering the witness is an objection that counsel can make during a cross-examination of a witness where opposing counsel becomes hostile or asks argumentative questions. If an attorney begins repeatedly asking a witness about the same thing, asks many rudely phrased questions, becomes very loud, or otherwise uses other unnecessary distracting tactics, the opposing counsel will object, hoping the judge will find the tactics be disruptive. So it's, I would say it gets to badgering when you're getting loud, you're interrupting the witness. I would say that prior is more of a badgerer than this guy. He was getting aggressive and maybe getting into badgering when he keeps asking the same damn question over and over. Like he asked the same question. He asks the same question in different words. He does that a lot. And defense attorneys do that a lot anyway. It's kind of their job because they're really trying to elicit a specific type of testimony. So it's not unusual for them to do that. But anyway, okay, we're back here at Daybell. Let's see what's going on. Yes, we can do motions in limine. It's motions in limine.
We just concluded the mid-morning recess. We're back on the record on case CR 22-21-16-23, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. Detective Stubbs still on the stand on direct. We just admitted States Exhibits 61A through S. And if you'd like to continue on direct, Mr. Wood, you may do so.
Thank you, Your Honor. And if I may publish.
You may. And as you publish, please reference each individual photo by its exhibit number.
So it appears it's the same witness as when we've left off. Same law enforcement officer who was issuing warrants.
Detective, was this one of the photos that you recovered from the flash drive we've been talking about?
Yes,
What does it appear to be?
appears to be Chad and Lori on the beach in Hawaii with the pastor, possibly doing a wedding ceremony.
I've never seen that picture.
In this photo?
Again, Chad and Lori, their wedding on the beach in Hawaii.
And what was that, Mr. Wood?
I apologize, Your Honor. That was 61A. And for clarity of the record, the first one I showed was 61I. If you can say what you observe in 61B.
Again, appears that they're on the beach again. Chad has a ukulele and Lori appears that she's dancing.
This is 61E.
These pictures are so cringe.
E is an echo.
They are so cringe.
And what do you observe?
Again, another photo. This is one that I do get a glimpse of a ring on Chad's left hand. This isn't the best of them all, though, but
Okay.
Yeah, who was
61K.
who was that pastor?
picture of the wedding rings, which appear to be silver with possible malachite in the middle of them that both parties were eventually wearing on their fingers.
61H.
Appears to be Lori and Chad holding hands, revealing Lori's ring on her left hand.
M.
Similar to the first, other than you see rings on both parties' hands.
And 61R.
This would appear to be Chad and Lori at some point. Appears to be in Kauai, Hawaii, in front of what appears to be the LDS temple.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I have no further questions for this witness.
All right. I'll have the bailiff retrieve those photos. Mr. Pryor, cross-examination.
I understand it's by
Turn on the
one.
microphone, please, Mr. Pryor.
We're going to learn, am I? Before I start, Judge, I understand this is by stipulation of the parties. I have Exhibit 50 and it's Defense Exhibit 50. And I still, again, it's Glenn Bard's report that was referenced by Officer Stubbs on the last line of his exhibit. I have the actual report of Glenn Bard, so I'm moving for admission of Glenn Bard's report.
All right.
No
any-
objection.
No objection. Very well. Defense Exhibit 50 is admitted. You may inquire.
Officer Stubbs, there's a term about universal time as it relates to adjusting cellular data. And could you explain that a little bit to me?
So UTC, where, if you will, where time is zero, and then as you move around the earth, you gain or lose an hour from that standard time.
Okay.
So depending on where you're at, it's UTC plus or minus.
Okay, and then when we're dealing with Rexburg, Idaho, St. Anthony area, do you have a recollection of what the UTC adjustment is?
It depends on the time of year, but it's usually UTC minus 6 or 7
Okay, so six, depending on
daylight savings.
daylight savings time, but for generally it's a 6 hour adjustment. Would that be fair?
6 or 7, depending. Yeah.
Okay. Now you made a habit of going over the body cam of the apartments, 175, which would be assigned to who? Apartment number 175 Pioneer.
Well, Lori Vallow was living there.
Okay, and then on 174, who was living there?
Melanie Boudreau.
And then 107, who was living there?
Well, 107 was originally assigned to Lori. However, we know Alex was living there at one time, but when we went there on the search warrants on the 27th, it was totally vacant.
Okay. And as part of your search warrant, did you also have a habit of going through the garages of those particular units as well?
Are you referring to my body cam or?
No, I'm talking
Just-
in general. Did you also go through and look through the garages as part of your search?
That would be practice, yes.
Okay, and you did that on this particular occasion?
The garages were going through, yes.
Okay, that wasn't necessarily part of your body cam, was it?
Well, from the body cams, I did reference the garage.
Okay. You didn't take particular notations during this presentation, anything substantial about what was found in the garage. Is that fair?
Other than the guns, no.
Okay. And if you were to see pictures of items that have been previously provided to the defense, would you be able to ascertain whether you believe those were items that were in the garage of the respective parties?
I'm not sure. I would
Okay.
have to see.
And if I provided you with those pictures and an opportunity to look at those pictures, would that be something that could refresh your recollection?
Possibly.
And Judge, if I could have the bailiff hand to Officer Stubbs. I have a thumb drive with a number of pictures. I'd ask Officer Stubbs, if you have some difficulty, please advise, and I can help you scroll through these respective pictures.
Okay, the device can be handed to the witness.
And if you have some difficulty, Judge, may I have permission to go to the witness, or could the bailiff help him?
Let's just see if the officer's able to sort through how to scroll the photos. Is it a touchpad? Can you swipe, or do you have to use?
I think he can arrow them down, Judge, or he.
Yeah, I can see the arrow to next. So you want me to go ahead and look at all
Go
these?
through 104A through the bottom of all of those, if you could.
I don't see where it's listed as like 104A. Oh, okay, it was on 104B when I got it.
And if necessary, you can zoom in if you need to.
You want me to go through how many, sorry?
Just go through the end of them, and it's 104A through, I think there's about 15 photos, so if you could go through the list there.
Okay.
I don't need it now, but I will at some point. Thank you. Not today.
Hey, Chopper. I just looked that up. Is he representing himself? And it says 2 hours here.
Yeah, I think I've looked through 104J.
Okay, and if I could have that, now, officer, do you recognize any of those photos?
Unless I previously stated, the only, if those came from 175, I was not, other than documenting the initial entry, I was not, from my body cam, what everyone saw, I was not involved in the search of 175. My directive was more in 174, so I don't recognize.
Okay. So other than the fact that you made mention of guns, you don't have any specific recollection of the items that are listed in these.
Mr. Pryor, please talk into the microphone.
You don't have any recollection of the items that are listed in that particular series of photos. Is that fair?
No.
Okay. So you don't have any recollection of recalling seeing any of those items in any of the photos. Is that fair?
Personally, no.
Okay. Did you find any other information through your investigation to determine whether any of those items are items that were found in any of the garages of the three parties you searched?
Restate that.
Through your investigation, were you able to ascertain whether any of those items were items that were obtained from the garage of the three parties that you searched?
I wouldn't be able to testify to that.
Okay. Okay. Now you spoke of the fact that you felt that the apartment of one of those folks was abandoned. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you spoke of the fact that you felt that, at least you implied that you felt that Lori Vallow was fleeing. Is that correct?
Objection misstates the testimony.
Sustained.
How about you felt that she had abandoned the home? Is that what you were implying?
Objection, that also misstates the testimony.
Overruled.
I believe that in walking through 175, that the clothes were all missing and possibly the people left in haste.
Okay. Now, as part of your continuing investigation, did you come across any data that suggested tickets or purchase of tickets to Disneyland or to Knott's Berry Farm were made prior to your search on the 26th?
That's not something that I investigated personally.
Okay. Do you have some information that there was a trip planned by Chad Daybell's family 2 weeks prior to the search of the 26th?
I don't recall the date, but I do recall that there was possibly a trip to Disneyland or something, yes.
Okay, so this wasn't a situation where Mr. Daybell was trying to hide his whereabouts. He purchased tickets and planned a trip 2 weeks before this search to go with his family. You're aware of that, right?
Objection, Your Honor. That misstates the testimony. His testimony was about the apartment of Lori Vallow.
Sustained.
So the representation that you felt that the apartment was vacated by Lori Vallow, that doesn't imply that Chad Daybell was vacating his premises, does it?
Objection,
No.
calls for speculation.
Overruled.
That doesn't mean Chad Daybell was vacating, was it?
Well, it wasn't Chad's home,
Right. It was Lori Vallow's home, right?
correct?
And then the other one was Alex Cox's home, correct?
Melanie Boudreau was next
Melanie
door.
Boudreau. Now you made mention of the Jeep and the search regarding the Jeep and regarding Brandon Boudreau, correct?
Search?
Yeah, the search to how to get the back seat out of a Jeep, right?
Okay. Thank you for clarifying
That's okay.
that search.
That's okay. And are you aware that Chad Daybell is not criminally implicated in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreau?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we may revisit it, but on Exhibit 59, I think that was the initial 10-minute surveillance tape of you talking with Lori Vallow, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and on that tape, she made a number of representations. And during the 10-minute interview that you had with her, who was present with you at the time again? I'm sorry.
Lieutenant Ball and Officer Kellen Wetton was also there.
Okay. And during that 10-minute interview of her, you folks decided to leave. Is that correct?
Yes, with the understanding that they were going to get a hold of us of JJ's whereabouts.
Okay. And during that interview with Miss Vallow, she indicated to you that her friend, and I don't know if it was good friend, but her friend Melanie Gibb had JJ. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you testified that you took some effort to get a hold of Miss Gibb, correct?
Correct.
And did you subsequently learn that you got a hold of Miss Gibb at some point shortly after that meeting with Lori Vallow?
That would have been later that evening that we finally got a hold of her.
And Miss Gibb confirmed at that time that she had JJ Vallow. Is that right?
No,
What did she say?
she said she did not have JJ.
Oh, well, isn't it true she lied to the police about the whereabouts of JJ Vallow on that day?
I don't know. I wasn't involved in that conversation.
Okay. Okay. So when you say that she said she didn't have JJ, how do you know that? If you weren't involved in the conversation?
Because the next day is when law enforcement obtained a warrant because she had stated to officers that she did not have him.
Okay. So your recollection is that Melanie Gibb did not lie to the police initially about having JJ Vallow? Is that what you're saying?
Objection, he's misstating the testimony.
Overruled.
Is that what you're saying?
Ask the question again, please.
So what you're saying is that you got the search warrant because Melanie Gibb said she did not have JJ Vallow? Is that what you recall?
That's what I recall.
Okay. Now, during the conversation with Lori Vallow, she made a number of representations. She made some mention of the fact that she was going to be moving back somewhere with Melanie Gibb. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And then her and that the JJ and Melanie were at a Frozen movie or something? You recall that?
She said that Melanie and JJ were most likely at the movie Frozen
Okay.
2.
Okay. So from what you heard her say about moving back, the fact that you felt that the apartment when you went back for the search warrant was abandoned, did you look into the possibility that Melanie Gibb had made plans to leave Rexburg, Idaho and move back with Melanie Gibb in Arizona?
Melanie Boudreau
Melanie Gibb
was moving back where?
with Melanie Gibb. Lori Vallow was moving back with Melanie Gibb to
Okay,
Arizona.
you said Melanie
Yeah,
Gibb
and
was moving back.
And I apologize for that. I'll rephrase that. I misstated that, excuse me. Did you look into any information that would support the idea that Lori Vallow, after she abandoned that unit 175, had the intent to permanently move back with Melanie Gibb?
Well, she had told us that, so we were looking into that possibility,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So at this point, what you have is you have information that would suggest Lori Vallow may not have been honest about the whereabouts of JJ Vallow, correct?
Correct?
And you had information that at least her friend Melanie Gibb was accused of having JJ, correct?
She stated that Melanie had JJ, yes.
And at some point, Melanie Gibb contacted law enforcement, which gave you concern as to where JJ was, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, as part of all of these records and all of this information, you didn't look at Melanie Gibb's phone records, did you?
Not at this time, no.
Well, at this time, we're in trial right now, sir.
Right.
So when are you planning on looking at the records? A week from now or a month from now?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
That's badgering.
You never looked at David Gibb's or David Warwick's records either, did you, sir?
Nope.
Okay. Are you aware of the circumstances regarding September 23rd and 22nd and 23rd of the last known existence of JJ Vallow?
The
Sir?
circumstances?
Yeah, the circumstances surrounding his disappearance on those days. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to.
Are you familiar of who was with JJ Vallow or in the close proximity of JJ Vallow on the 22nd of September, the day he was at least last observed?
There was a number of people that were at Lori's residence, yes.
Right. And one of those people was Melanie Gibb, correct?
Correct?
One of those people was David Warwick, correct?
Correct.
And you're trying to locate JJ Vallow, and Lori Vallow on this tape says to you, my good friend Melanie has JJ, right?
Correct.
And you didn't look or bother to look into either David or Melanie Gibb's phones, did you?
No.
Would you agree with me that Miss Vallow was very convincing?
No.
You wouldn't?
No.
Okay, well, you showed up and were there for 10 minutes, right?
Correct.
She talked to you about a number of things and made a number of statements, and would you agree that a good number of those statements were not truthful?
That's correct.
And yet you didn't take any sort of action to detain her or to hold her, any type of any sort of action that way, law enforcement action to detain her, to hold her from fleeing on the 26th, right?
Correct.
Okay. Then you went back again and talked to her, correct?
On that same day?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And then again, you didn't take any action, correct?
Well, we hadn't established that JJ was not with Melanie Gibb at that time. Therefore, we had no reason to detain her.
Now, I noticed during the tape recording that there was a comment that was made right after the first visit with on the recording. And if we have to go back, please tell me if you don't remember. We can revisit that. But after you left Lori Vallow's apartment, you made the comment, not. Do you remember saying that?
I do.
Yeah, and not, if I understand correctly, and please correct me, is a situation where that's sort of a code word for telling law enforcement to turn off your body cams and not record what you were about to talk about, correct?
That would be correct.
So in other words, as part of this investigation, you chose that we're going to not allow these statements to be recorded. That we're going to stop this body cam because we don't want to reveal or provide the information that the three of you officers were going to discuss. Is that correct?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled.
Is that correct?
Yes, we were going to state our opinions.
Okay. We didn't get the benefit of your opinion then because you turned off the cam, right?
That's right.
And at the conclusion of the second body cam, did you do a little knock there too?
No.
Okay. Ms. Vallow also mentioned that Alex Cox was her protector, right?
That's correct.
And you made mention that Melanie Gibb was not answering her phone, correct? You testified about that?
Yes.
And you made mention that Lori Vallow was not responding as well to phone calls, correct?
Later, yes.
Okay, how many phone calls did you make to Chad Daybell seeking information about JJ?
Myself, I did not make
Okay.
any.
Okay. And there was no warrant to search Chad Daybell's property at that time, is that correct?
That's correct.
And through your research of all of the devices, you didn't find an email or Facebook posting or text that said from Chad Daybell saying, Lori, let's kill the kids. You never found anything like that, right?
I did not.
Okay. Now, during the search of the of one of the apartments, I noted this, and I noted this before. You made it, and you know everybody who was at the apartment during the search, right?
Most likely.
Body cam, most likely, or did you?
What about the body cam?
The body cam search of the three apartments. You knew everybody who was in there at that time, correct?
I'm sure I did.
Okay, all right. And at the time, you made a comment during one of the searches, and you said something to the effect, going that way, Rob.
Okay.
Who's Rob?
That would have been Prosecutor Rob Wood.
Okay, so Prosecutor Rob Wood was present during the execution of the search and review of which apartment were you searching when you told Rob going that way?
I believe that was 175.
Okay, Lori Vallow's.
Correct.
Okay. Did you have any information as to where Chad Daybell was living after he got back from his Knott's Berry Farm trip?
I can only speculate
Okay.
from what I had heard.
All right. Now, you mentioned the fact that you also tapped some phone calls. Is that correct?
No.
That you sought a warrant to place, go ahead.
A tap is to listen to somebody. We did not listen to anybody.
Okay. Did you do any location? uh, And I don't know what the proper word is. The warrant that you searched to be able to do a location on someone's phone like you did in this particular case. What's the term of that again? I'm sorry.
Tap and trace.
Tap and trace. That's right. I thought I had the first word right. So did we happen to do a tap and trace on Melanie Gibb and David Warwick's phone as well?
No.
Okay. So the link to get Chad Daybell's phone information, that was based on the fact that you saw Chad and Lori holding hands at the Hobby Lobby and that they were married at that time, correct?
Can you give me a little more than link?
All right. The reason for the search warrant to get Chad Daybell's phone is that he was married to Lori Vallow, correct?
Yes.
There was no indication that he had any involvement in the disappearance at that time of JJ Vallow, correct?
Other than he wasn't responding to our requests.
Well, he wasn't responding to yours because you didn't call him, right?
Well, I believe attempts were probably made to his phone, not by myself.
Okay. And the question is that you said probably. So you really don't know the length and extent of what was taken to contact Chad Daybell, do you?
That's right.
So when you testified earlier today, when you said attempts were made to contact Chad Daybell, you really don't know what the attempts were made, do you?
I can't be specific, no.
Well, you can't give us any information because you don't know, isn't that right?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled.
You don't know, do you?
Pryor, Mr. Pryor,
Thank
once I
you,
make a
Judge.
ruling, then the witness gets to answer the question, so don't jump in.
I know attempts were made.
Coverage is really designed to show a phone company has an area, specific area covered, correct?
That could prove to be fake.
Roughly.
Yeah. And it's not a way to locate where a device is. It's not appropriate to use cell tower coverage to show where a phone is in a particular location, is it?
It would be of the three methods, the least accurate.
Okay. Well, the least accurate would be there's cell towers that are shooting down a coverage area, and what the least accurate is that that's showing that potentially the phone's in that designated area that covered by the cell tower, right?
Of three areas, yes.
Right. Okay. So the wedding photos, it's not unusual to have photos of a wedding, is it?
No.
And you don't know on that thumb drive that you said the family pictures of Mr. Daybell, you don't know whether those were copied to another thumb drive, do you?
I do not.
And just the photos of themselves are not anything peculiar or particularly alert to anything, correct?
Are you talking about the wedding photos?
The wedding photos, yeah.
No.
And did you research why people use malachite?
It has something to do with spirituality and other things.
Okay. And you have no information that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow, prior to the searches of the malachite rings and the purchase of the rings, had ever discussed getting married. Is that right?
Not that I know.
Okay. Okay. Judge, could I have one moment, please?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Just briefly.
Very well.
David Warwick's phone. Correct?
Correct.
You testified earlier about a geofence.
Yes.
Did Melanie Gibb or David Warwick's phone show up in that geofence?
No.
And you asked about Melanie Gibb and David Warwick and doing a tap and trace on them. And you didn't do that, correct?
That's correct.
At the time you did tap and trace warrants on Lori and Chad, was Melanie Gibb cooperating with law enforcement?
Yes.
So you didn't have to do a tap and trace to find her.
No, we were in communication with her.
You were asked about any link between Chad and the search for JJ, correct?
Correct.
Where was JJ Ballow's body found?
On Chad Daybell's property.
Were any of Melanie Gibb or David Warwick's kids found on Chad Daybell's property?
No.
Grounds? The objection's untimely, overruled.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right, that'll conclude the testimony then of Officer Stubbs. I'm going to inquire of the state, is there a potential that this witness is going to be recalled for further questioning during trial?
Your Honor, it's not likely. We have with our law enforcement officers, though, decided we're probably not going to release them just in case we need them for rebuttal.
Okay, well, in that case, then, Officer Stubbs, you are still subject to the court's exclusionary order, so please don't follow the trial or watch the trial in any way after you step down in case you're recalled, unless you're advised by the prosecutors you can do so. If you are recalled, I'll be inquiring on whether or not you've abided by that instruction. Thank you for providing your testimony. You can go ahead and step down, and I'll let the state call another witness once you leave.
Really quick, but we would be calling Steve Daniels.
Okay, take a minute to do that.
Steve Daniels.
solemnly swear or
Okay, thank you. Agent Daniels, there's an exclusionary order in this case, meaning people testifying are not permitted to view testimony of those that testified before, and the case has been live streamed as well as open to the public. Have you viewed or watched or in any way observed trial testimony since this case began?
No, I have not.
Okay, have you discussed with anyone else the testimony they've given during trial?
No, I have not.
All right, with that declaration, then, Mr. Woods, if you'd like to proceed with your direct, you may.
Thank you. Can you please state your name and spell your name for the record?
Steve Daniels, last name Daniels.
What is your occupation?
Special agent with the FBI.
How long have you worked for the FBI?
I've worked for the FBI for 26 years, approximately.
At any time in your work with the FBI,
A long
were you a
time.
part of the evidence response team?
I was.
What is the evidence response team?
The evidence response team is basically the crime scene investigation team. We do forensics for the FBI.
How does someone become a member of, now the evidence, we're saying evidence response team, can we call that ERT?
Yes, we can.
Is that how you normally refer to it?
Correct. Yes.
To shorten the time, how does someone become a member of ERT?
And real quick, approximately 1 year ago, I stepped off of our ERT team.
Okay, so you're no longer a member of ERT.
Correct.
When did you become a member of ERT?
I was on ERT and off ERT. My original entry on ERT was approximately 2001.
How does a member of the FBI become a part of ERT?
Once you become an FBI employee, Then there's a hiring process to become an ERT member, like an internal process to become a member.
Okay. And what training is necessary for that?
Once you become an official ERT member, then you get to go back to Fredericksburg, Virginia, and you receive an 80-hour ERT training, a basic training. And at that basic training, that's where you kind of learn the original beginning policies, procedures, how to process crime scenes, how to process, execute search warrants, that type of thing.
And did you complete that basic ERT training?
Yes, I did.
Is there advanced training available for ERT members?
Yes, there's a lot of advanced trainings after you get the 80-hour basic course completed.
What, if any, advanced trainings did you complete as a member of ERT?
I completed a lot of advanced trainings. I think the one that's relevant today would be the Recovery of Human Remains course. And I completed that one approximately March of 2014. And at that course is held at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And that's a course, it's a 40-hour course. And you have to complete the basic ERT course and another course, advanced course, before you take it. And the pertinent things are, that's the course where you're taught by certified experts from the University of Tennessee how to process human remain recovery sites. So how to collect those sites, how to process the sites. They have a large area where they actually have human remains. And during the course, and it kind of varies, but you get to excavate approximately 4 to 5 burial sites. So my course, we excavated approximately 4 human remains sites during the course. And then at the end of your excavations, your team members or each team will present those, their excavations, what they did, how they did it to each other. So you kind of learn from that. And then besides that, in this area, there's other human remains that are at various states of decomposition. So throughout the course, you kind of learn how the human remains, how they decompose under different circumstances, different variables, and that's all part of the training.
And you completed that training?
Correct, in 2014.
Have you, other than this case, ever participated in the recovery of human remains?
Yes. So since 2001 to approximately a year ago, I've participated in many different circumstances of recovering human remains.
Okay. At any time, did you hold a leadership position within ERT?
Yes.
What was that?
When I left ERT, I was the senior team leader for the evidence response team out of Salt Lake City, Utah, out of the Salt Lake City division. And our division covers the states of Utah, Idaho, and Montana.
Were you involved with a search of the Chad Daybell residence on June 9th and 10th of 2020?
I was.
What was your involvement there?
I was the ERT senior team leader for that search.
And who asked you to be a part of that search?
Approximately 1 week prior to the search, a local FBI case agent from the area contacted me and informed me that there would be search warrant execution on the Chad Daybell property. And one of the things we would be looking for would be human remains.
And do you know where Chad Daybell's residence is located?
Yes.
Where is that?
It's in Fremont County, Idaho.
Chad Daybell's property.
So once that FBI agent contacted me about a week prior to the search warrant execution, I spoke with that FBI agent who was one of the case agents for the FBI. And then we contacted local Rexburg Police Department. And then I would have contacted our evidence response team unit, and our evidence response team unit oversees all evidence response teams nationwide. And then I would have contacted the evidence or our FBI laboratory. And at the FBI laboratory, we have a group called the Operational Projects Unit. And together, all of us came up with a search strategy. So we kind of pulled our resources together, talked about this, this case, this search, this execution, and then the Operations Projects Unit was able to give us some satellite imagery of that property. The case agents, the local police were able to provide us with some information about the case. One of the things was like telephone information, text message information, and we kind of put that all together to come up with a plan. So we had a little bit of prior knowledge before we got there. So we kind of had a little bit of an idea of what we wanted to do.
When did you arrive on the Daybell property?
It would have been June 9th of 2020, and it would have been sometime after 7 a.m.
What was the first thing you instructed your team to do?
Since we had a week of preparation, we had approximately 8 ERT team members, official team members on site. So given that week of preparation, our team members were pre-assigned roles. So we kind of all had at least an initial role or responsibility prior to arrival. So some of those roles would have been to start a crime scene sign-in log, start overall photos, photography of that crime scene. And that just involves getting as-is photos of what that property looks like. And we had a plan in place for how we wanted to start those, start with some priority areas. And then I would have been starting my own log. I have an administrative log that I do. And one of the things, my responsibilities as a team leader is to do a walkthrough. So just doing a survey walkthrough of that property to see what we're actually dealing with now that we're there. And those are some of the initial things.
And I'm sorry if I missed it. Did you designate priority areas for search?
We had a couple priority areas. So one of our known priority areas from the aerial imagery that we looked at ahead of time, like satellite imagery, we knew there was a fire pit on the scene. So that was a priority area for us for sure. So 2 of my ERT team members, they were designated to find the fire pit or go to it since we knew it was already there. And they were designated to further assess that fire pit. We knew from the aerial images that there was a fire pit, at least from whatever date our images were from. But we needed to, once we got there, we needed to see what does this fire pit actually look like? Could it have been somewhere else on the dates that we were really interested in, which the dates we were really interested in were what did this fire pit look like in September of 2019. So I had a couple team members that were just designated with, once we get there, go straight to the fire pit, trying to assess what is it, what are we dealing with, is there anything else in that area? And so we had 2 people designated to that for sure. We had a text message that talked about burying something in a pet cemetery. So we knew that there was some kind of pet cemetery supposedly on the property. So one of my jobs was to try to figure out where is this pet cemetery. So that was something we didn't know, but we wanted to try to assess that and see if we could figure that out. So that was something I'd be looking for once we got there. And then we had a telephone ping that showed one of the suspects in the case. We had a few, 3 or 4 telephone pings on the property from that September of 2019 time of interest that we had pre-placed on a kind of a satellite image of the property that gave us a few indicators that in September of 2019, these persons were in these areas on the property. So at least that gave us an idea of, hey, let's at least go check out those areas to see if there's any discrepancies, anything interesting in the vicinity of where those telephone pings were at. So we had a couple of those areas that we for sure wanted to go check out. And one of those was northeast of what we assessed to be some kind of pond on the property from those aerial imageries.
Your Honor, I apologize. May I have a brief sidebar with counsel in the court?
Yes.
Sidebar.
After that sidebar, Your Honor, I do have some pictures to admit by way of stipulation. I do have copies for court and counsel. The first set of pictures would be 170 F through GG. And I, by way of stipulation, move for those to be entered into evidence.
Any objection to 170F through GG? Okay, exhibits 170F through GG are all admitted.
The next set of photos is 170 QQ through 170, I apologize, 170 V through 170 QQ. V through QQ, V as in Victor.
Any objection to those?
If I could just have one moment, Judge, please.
You may.
Should be 170 WW through 170 XX.
So I'm gonna call them out individually to track on the record if these are what you have as well. The G again of
Is 170 J.
you need to review those.
Yes, Judge, and there's no objection.
Okay, the photographs that are contained in what's marked 170 Y rows.
One.
Okay.
170A.
On the record in the.
And do you recognize those pictures?
I do.
What are they?
Those are the photographs that our ERT photographers took while we were there on June 9th and 10th of 2020.
And did you work with other members of the FBI to create an interactive exhibit that detailed the work that you did, you and your team did, on the Daybell property on June 9th and 10th, 2020?
I did. I worked with our total station, our Salt Lake City total station operator. I worked with our Salt Lake City Faro scanner operator, and I worked with the operational projects unit. That's our unit at the FBI laboratory in order to come up with an interactive.
And you mentioned total station. Can you just very briefly describe for the court and the jury what a total station is?
So total station is just a measuring device, and it's a point-to-point measuring device. Sits on a tripod on one end, and on the other end, it has a pole, and at the top of the pole, there's a prism. And on the end that's on top of the tripod, it shoots a laser to the end with the pole with the prism on top. And then that laser will shoot back to the tripod end. And like I said, it's really good for longer distances, and it's a point-to-point measuring tool. So the team can kind of dictate which pieces of evidence or objects it shoots in or measures. So in a scene like the one we'll discuss today, it's good at outdoor scenes. It's good at long distance measurements. It's good at measuring perimeters or grids. And we'll discuss that today later.
Is it fair to say, is it somewhat similar to a surveyor's tool?
Yes, it's similar to what you'll see road construction crews using on the side of a road when they're shooting in longer distance measurements.
And you mentioned a Faro scanner. If you just briefly describe for the court and the jury what a Faro scanner is.
And the Faro scanner is another measuring tool that we'll use on our crime scenes. And it's also sits on a tripod, but there's just one measuring tool on the tripod, and it has a laser also, but the laser that it emits is directed by a mirror that spins on it, and it has a coverage area, horizontal coverage area of 360 degrees and a vertical area of 300 degrees. And as it rotates, it will shoot thousands, of measurements at a time. And we can't really, wherever we set that scanner, we can't really direct what it's picking up, but it's really good at scanning a lot of areas as it scans. And then we'll just move that around. And for this scene, we did just over 40 scans. So it's when they kind of complement each other. So it's really good using them on these scenes.
You talked about the total station of the Faro scanner. Is the data collected by that voluminous?
Yes.
Okay. And this exhibit that you worked to create, was it created to summarize the voluminous data you collected through photographs, total station Faro scanner? Was it used to summarize that in a way that is presentable to a jury?
Yes. So there was a lot of data that was collected from all of these tools, and that all was presented to the defense and prosecution teams. And then this exhibit was meant to just summarize everything and make it as easy possible for everybody today.
And would that exhibit make it more convenient to provide your testimony rather than bringing in every Faro scan, every total station measurement?
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, based on Idaho Rule of Evidence 1006, the state would move to admit that demonstrative, or I apologize, the summary exhibit 171 that the agent has just described.
For those of you
All
not
right, has
looking at
defense
the
counsel
chat,
been able to review the exhibit?
Yes, Judge.
Is there any objection to the admission of summary?
for those of you not looking at the chat, I have a poll up if you wouldn't mind voting. Thank you.
Exhibit 171.
With the understanding, Judge, that it's being offered as a summary of this officer's testimony.
All right, without objection then, and pursuant to Rule of Evidence 1006, the exhibit is admitted.
In Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
And just for the court's information, that exhibit is on a thumb drive.
Okay, so it'll be marked with the corresponding 171
Yes.
designation. Okay.
I believe I gave the court a courtesy copy earlier, and then this one will be presented into evidence.
Very well.
Agent, is this the exhibit you prepared?
Yes, it is.
It's just taking a second to read.
So this opening screen just shows the city of Rexburg to the south, and then north is going to be to the top of our screen on all of these. And then our Daybell property, Chad Daybell property, is going to be up to the top here. And then I think the only thing else to mention is that on June 9th in the early morning, our ERT team staged at this Salem church as local law enforcement secured the Chad Daybell property prior to our arrival.
I apologize, Your Honor. It still seems to be having an issue.
Sounds like fun, Tiggy girl. Have fun.
There we go. Or maybe not. Your Honor, I do apologize for the technical difficulty. I'm going to try and reboot this one more time. And if it doesn't work, we have an alternative way of presenting it through him.
Judge, could we approach this area so quickly? A sidebar.
I would prefer if Mr. Wood maybe continues working on that. Is there another prosecutor that can sidebar in his absence?
Sidebars. They're probably going to talk about scheduling.
Some additional time, that's probably the best choice. If you think it's going to be some additional time, that's probably the best choice at this time.
Another time.
Your Honor, that may be the best choice. And if we could have, I don't know if it's possible today to have a shortened lunch based on what the court had mentioned earlier.
Another
Okay,
technology.
let's try and do that. We'll break for lunch at this time. It's 1:45 p.m. I'd like to try to get back on with additional evidence at 12:30 if possible for a 45-minute lunch recess. Hopefully that's enough time to get lunch to the jurors and allow everyone to take the necessary break. So we'll break now for the lunch recess.
All right, they broke for the lunch recess. That is what they did. And it was once again a technology forced break. Gotta love that technology. So thank you all for those of you who it looks like most of you voted in the poll, and the poll was related to when I should start coverage, when I should start court coverage. The reason I've been doing it live is because it's been just my personal preference, because I almost feel like I am missing out on something. It's me. It's just me, really, because I feel like I'm missing out on something if I am not watching at the same time as everybody else. However, it really, really drags on when we have to sit here through all the technology hiccups in all these various courts. So it's nice to be able to fast forward. The other thing is what I've noticed, this is a relatively new court channel, right? I haven't been doing this as long as many other court channels. And what I've noticed is just the ebb and flow of my audience is that in the early hours, most people aren't here anyway. Most people are also really not woken up and logging in and stuff like that. So if other people, and it's looking like other people are preferring by, a 42 to 25 to 33, preferring that we fast forward. So, I don't think we should be too far behind, but enough far behind to where we can fast forward through things, but not feel like we're totally missing out on current information. So I'm going to pick a time, where I start to cover these things at like a human hour in the morning for me, but also one that doesn't miss out on a lot. And, so you'll see when I start to, thank you, Rachel Lee. So you'll see when I start to, schedule the start times for my lives, because honestly, I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for you all as well. I want you all to get enjoyment out of this. And so as far as today is concerned, I just scheduled a live to cover the Darrell Brooks motions hearing, and he's going to be represented. His pro se litigation is the most entertaining, but I do have to say, I've hesitated. I've wanted to, I've thought about, recapping some of his pro se performance from his past case. But there comes a point where it feels a little bit exploitative, right? Because the man is clearly not in his right mind. He's clearly not in his right mind. And at a certain point, you find yourself laughing at a person who is not in his right mind. And it starts to feel like, you know what? I'm just doing I appreciate that, Teacup. And so, as much as it's instructive to study a person like Darrell Brooks and his antics in the courtroom, I also want to be sensitive to the fact. I want to be sensitive to his victims. It's not funny to his victims. His behavior is not funny to his victims. The 6 parade victims that got murdered and mowed down by his car, and now his sexual assault victim. And that's what this motions hearing is about. He will be represented, but it will be very interesting to see if he's able to maintain some sense of composure in court. And I'm very interested in this case in general. You know, it is hard to watch him. But it's also will be interesting to see if he's been able to learn anything through his various experiences. Can somebody who is that disturbed, who is clearly out of his mind, can he learn? Can he change? Those are the types of things I like to study. And yeah, he may be totally different, or maybe just a smidgen different, which is noteworthy as well, right? For somebody who is that far gone, who was that far gone, so far gone that he built forts around himself. He built literal forts around himself in the courtroom, and then had to be sent out of the courtroom so many times. And, that poor judge who had to deal with him. So anyway, it'll be very interesting to watch. And I understand why, people want to tune in, and I certainly do. But I also don't want to treat it like he's some sort of I'm struggling to find the right words, So anyway, I'm going to close this out. I'm going to do the 12 p.m. motions hearing, and then perhaps after we watch that motions hearing, we'll return back to the Daybell trial and see what's going on there. And I hope you're all okay with that. And hope I'll see you back here for the afternoon session. Love you all. Thanks for being here. Please, of course you are, Sparkles, and I hope you're safe from that horse hornet that was flying around your house, the bird hornet. Please remember to hit the thumbs up, and wherever you go, wherever you are, please remember to be kind, and I hope everybody's kind to you as well. Talk to you later.